and when it goes. Okay, so we were talking about functions last time, which is probably getting ahead of things a little bit, because I realized when I looked at the assignments that really nobody's done assignment 3 or 4, which is fine. Where it says exercise 5.2, if you don't have your book, it basically says that a certain college computer science professor gives 5-point quizzes that are graded on a scale of 5 equals A, 4 equals B, 3 equals C, 2 equals D, 1 equals F, 0 equals F. And then you want to write a program that takes the number and then returns the letter. So there's a couple of ways to do that. One way is to do if statements, but the book hasn't introduced if statements yet, right? So I'm going to show you a couple of other ways to do that. And then I'll give you some time to do that assignment today. And we might go on beyond that too. If you want to write it in functions, you're welcome to. That would be incorporated, but you don't have to. So I'm going to bring up idle. I'll do a new file. So when you do a list, so I'm going to make just a list. We'll do a couple of these, I think, and then I'll let you guys do it. A list is basically a collection of variables under one name, or a collection of values. Let's make it that way. Under one name. So in Python, they just call them lists. Most languages are called a variety of things. There are a lot of different kinds. There are hashes. There are lists. There are arrays. There are all sorts of different structures that kind of fit this same pattern. So we did the strings, right, where you can loop through characters because every character is basically a separate item in a list. It's a list of characters. Every string is a list of characters. So this is just sort of generalizing the idea of list a little bit more. So I am going to, I'll do a def main. And again, you could do this without doing a def main, but. And basically, let me do, I'm just going to do an input. So let's do, I'm going to do day equals, int input, enter a number between 1 and 7, basically. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is probably I should do it beforehand, although it doesn't really matter what order you do this in. But I'm going to say, call it day names, I guess, equals, and I'm just going to do a square bracket. And I'm going to just put in, I guess we start with Sunday. I'm just doing the 3. Close the square bracket. So this defines a list where you're predefining the values. Later we'll look at where you can assign values on the fly to a list and do different things. But this creates a list of all of those. Just like the characters, each one has an index, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you want to output the day of the week, so we got the day names. What do we want to name this variable? I guess I will just say day of week equals day minus 1. Or actually, let's do it this way. Day names. Day minus 1. Does anybody know what that might be? What we're doing there? So if you enter,
it references the list you put in starts at 0 and goes to
yeah, except it should be
whatever
plus
number
1.
that is, but it references that list and brings back.
Right, but it should be plus 1 because we're starting at 0, right?
What? No, shouldn't it be 1 because then you go backwards.
Oh, right, because we have to go backwards. I was right the first time. My brain is gone. Because we're entering the day, but it'll be day 7 would actually be 6 on the list, so it's minus 1. I was just thinking. I wasn't thinking. My brain isn't here yet.
Off by 1 errors. They're fun.
Yes, although they're usually easy to figure out, unless it's really complicated. I used to, a long time ago in C#, I would do things where the problem would be off by a really small amount, and finding that the idea was troubleshooting. Finding that could be really difficult. It's not so bad if you're off by a lot, right? Then it's pretty obvious something is wrong. But what's dangerous is when you're off by a little bit, you might not notice, right? And I once read an article that says half of the banking in the U.S. is wrong because the programmers didn't understand the math. Yeah, but I mean, interest rates, the way banks do interest is very complicated sometimes. So I do not know if that's true or still true. And I don't know if it was actually true at the moment that they said it, but it's often the case that if you don't, you don't catch some small errors sometimes unless you're really careful. So then I just want to do print day of the week. So, and then I'll call main. So I need to save this. And I'll go to Documents, Python Programs, Day of Week, or whatever you want to call it. And then I'll run it. Okay, so I'm going to say 5, and it gives me Thursday, which should be correct. Does that make sense? Yeah. So this is, we could break this into methods too if you want to, into functions, just for fun. The assignment is really close to this, just to let you know. This is one way to do it without, as I said, the other way, which we'll get to eventually, is like a block of if statements. If it's this, then it's this. If it's that, it's that. If, else, elif, else. You can just do a block of if statements to get the same result. This works though with arrays, and it is one way to get them out, really. Yeah.
Does Python support switches?
It doesn't that I can see.
Okay. I'm sure someone's implemented it in the module.
Yeah. I could, my knowledge of Python is still not deep, as you could probably tell. For years, I've taught C# and Java, and my knowledge of those is pretty deep. I know a lot of what they will do, but Python I'm still learning. So I have not seen a switch. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a list and an array?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, like, this looks an awful.
Except that, now again, this is something I have to research in Python. I think you can, they just call them lists. In other languages, the difference is that a list can only do one value, but it has no definite end, no definite size. Whereas an array has to be given a definite size, and an array can be multi-dimensional, which a list cannot.
I actually, as far as I read, it was actually sort of the opposite, where a list had to have a definite size, because to add something onto a list, you can't just say where it's going to be. You have to do the list append to add something on.
You append it, but you can append it forever, whereas an array in most languages has a length and you can't change that length.
Okay.
So if you said in C#, if you said created an array with 10 elements, you would not be able to go beyond 9 on the index.
Okay.
It just, and you can't, if you want it to be a bigger array, what you'd have to do is create a bigger array and copy that array to the other one. Whereas a list, you have to append, yes, but you can append infinitely. And then the other difference, although again it doesn't matter so much for us right now, is that an array can have multi-dimensions.
Right.
Whereas a list in most languages is a single dimension. I have a memory, I think, that Python, I think in Python lists and arrays are conflated. I think you can make a multi-dimensional list in Python. I won't swear to that though.
I know that I've seen modules specifically for arrays.
You have?
Yeah, I was looking at stuff on lists and Stack Overflow. I was
Okay.
trying to figure out lists, and I had called them arrays originally, and then someone said, no, that's actually just a different thing. So, okay.
Yeah, I know they're distinct. I don't know. Again, following this book, he doesn't actually ever say array. That doesn't necessarily mean they don't exist as such.
Right.
One of the things, you guys are actually literally the first time I've taught Python. And one of the things, if you know a lot of languages, it's not hard to learn another. But yeah, my depth of reference isn't there yet. Another couple of quarters and it'll be better. So what you guys research is useful to me also. Questions on this? So this is one way where we're just using the index number. All right, let's try it with 7. Let's see if it's something I did. It might be how, let's do, so I'm going to do, what do I want to do? I just want to run it. So it worked for me. Let's see your list. If you left out anything, then you'd be overflowed. So one of the things about a list like this, and we've just literally defined our list, right? We defined the values at the moment. It is possible to add things on the fly. But if I were to do 8, that's beyond the end of the list, and I would get an error, right? So I would get the error, what does it say? List out of range. So it's gone beyond the end of the list. Does that make sense? You can't go beyond the list, which is one reason, and it always starts at 0. All lists start with 0 for counting. Programmers in general always start counting at 0. Not entirely sure why, probably just because of the binary nature of things. The only exception I know is in SQL. In SQL, when you create a list, they start at 1. And why them? I mean, why that one place? Because it always drives me nuts. Anyway.
But it's not a general purpose programming language.
Yeah, and it's a high-level language. Basically, it's a language written on top of other languages. So SQL runs on top of C++ usually. But you never see the C++ ever.
Right.
All right. Do you guys want to break this up into methods just for fun, or do you want to go look at another example? How would you break it into methods? I'm just going to do a file new file. I'm going to move this one. Come on, move. Here. This is one thing I always liked about Windows is that you could do this. You can do it in iOS now too. Yeah, the newest iOS. So if I were to do this, again, the methods is a bit ahead of the things. If you do your assignment as all in main, I will not, it'll be fine, right? So if you think about what are the steps of this, what are the parts, we want to get our input, right? We need to do our conversions.
Defining the list would that be its own step?
Well, so I think I would do, there's a couple of ways you could do it. So if you wanted to define the array, you could do it as a separate method. Now, one of the things, oh well, I won't worry about that until we get into, Python doesn't really have a good class scope. So you'd have to pass it through. And then we output, right? You get the input, you do the conversion, basically getting the number to word. And then you output, which not out. Okay. So let's do def. I don't know what to name this. Anybody have a good name for it? Personally defined as a keyword, I just noticed. Maybe it's not. Set days. And what we'll do is we'll just do basically the day names. So I'm just going to copy and paste between them. So let's see, where is the, doesn't have a scroll bar, which is interesting. You can, I'm going to break this. No, actually, can you break this?
Mm-hmm.
And it'll still work?
It should. They haven't broken up in the book.
Yeah, okay. White space is always difficult in this, which they aren't in other languages, so I'm not sure. So, and then I'm just going to return day names. There's a couple of ways you could do this. You could pass it off, right? And then I'm going to define, and then I have to go over here to get to the other side too. So let's call it weekday. And I'm going to get the, oh, we need to do the input, right? So let's get the input. So let's just call it get day. And then I'm just going to call, I'm just going to copy that. This is just an extra exercise. As I said, you don't have to necessarily do this. They have scroll bars across the bottom. All right, I'm going to leave that there, and then I'll return day. And then we're going to do our calculation, and this one will be a little different. So I'm going to do def get day name maybe. I'm going to pass in the like day number or whatever you want to call it. It could just be day as well. And as I scroll back here, I will get this. And I'm going to return day of week. And then the last, as I said, this makes everything more complicated, and I realize that. Print day. And I will say day name, oops, colon. I'm just going to say print day name. And then we need a main where we call all of these. And when you're doing functions, really the hard part, notice how much more complicated this is though than that. As I said, when you're doing this on a low, small level like this, the functions are more complicated than if you just did it plain. But as you get into a more complicated programs, then the functions start to make a lot of sense. So I'm going to do def main. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, so we want the day names, right? So I'm going to do, I'm just going to call it days equals set days. So it'll get the array.
On the print day, wouldn't it be day of week as the input?
On the which one?
On the print day function.
Oh, it'd be print day name. What do you mean?
So
I may have to pass something else though. I was realizing I don't have access to the array.
wouldn't it just move the output of day of week from the prior function, print day? I mean, get day name.
You could do that. You certainly could do that, right? Rather than pass that, you could just pass the function. I'm thinking that the since I'm working my way through complications, I'm not sure days is available to anything. We have it returned. Well, actually, I think it'll work. No. Day names, day one. This is good, except where does it get day names?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the things we need to do here that will make everything a little bit easier is I'm going to call, I'm going to do days equals set days. What?
You're not using the argument that you gave it.
Yes, so it doesn't need to be there anymore. Well, so the number,
It still needs the argument.
yeah, it still needs the argument, and I should use it. So actually, we don't need that. We just need set days. And then this would be days. And this would be day number. Right, because we need the.
Are the semicolons needed in?
What?
Are the semicolons needed in?
They are not. That is a habit that will not work here. It would cause an error. I'm really used to putting a semicolon at the end of expressions. It's an unconscious habit.
You also got one in Maine.
Do I? Okay. I think that'll work, but then we don't need to do this. right? We just need to get, so we need to get the day. So I'm just going to do day equals get day. What else do we need? So we get the day. We want to pass that down to get day name. So this would be, I'm just going to say weekday equals get day name. There are more efficient ways to do this, like you were talking about, where you could have functions calling functions. And then it's just print day. Okay, does that work? And then I'm just going to call main. This is a lot more complicated than I meant it to be.
Should it be lowercase?
Yes, it should be. Good eye. Anything else I typed wrong? That's a way more complicated than this. And as I said, your assignment, you don't have to do this, but just to kind of reinforce the idea of things. So does this work? I'm going to call, and we should have probably done your thing of testing each function, but I'm going to call get day. So that'll give me the input. Inside of get day name, I'm going to pass the, oh, I need to pass get day name. I need to pass the day, right? I need to pass my input. So that would have given us an error. So I'm passing in, I get the number day, I'm going to pass it in, it gets mapped to day number here. I'm going to get the array. I'm going to use the array to figure out what, the day of the week is. And then I'm going to return that day of the week. So I get all of that. So this should be, if I put in 3, it should be Tuesday, right? So that should be Tuesday. And then I'm just going to print the Tuesday. So get the day, get the input. Here I pass the input to there. We're going to get the array from the top one. We're going to figure out which day of the week it is based on this number that we've given it. We're going to return that, and then we're going to print the output. So I said there are more efficient ways you could do this with the functions, because functions can call functions. But this, I think, keeps it a little bit clearer, maybe not. I'm going to save this. Control S. And I'll just say day of week functions. Save, and I'll try to run it. Enter a number, I'll do the 3. And after all of that, it comes out to exactly the same thing. It's a short one. Tuesday. That one's a lot more complicated. And as I said, when you start building things that are complicated, this is actually simpler, but at this level, it's actually complicated things quite a bit. But it's good to start thinking about it in terms of structure. Again, for the assignment, you don't have to do that. For the assignment, you could just do the main. The gist of the assignment is that arrays have indexes, and you can use the index to pull out an assignment. Right? So it tells you what the grade is, the letter grade, and what the number for it is. You guys want time to do that now, or do you want to do other things first? Right? Okay. Right? files?
Yeah, other stuff.
Other stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. We could look, so we could do a little bit more complicated one of those, or we could do something else, maybe something closer to the next assignment. But it's actually really simple. Remember how we did the exercise that counts the number of words? And then we counted the length of the words. This is just the first half of that. So the next assignment is just write a program that counts the number of words in a sentence entered by the user. It's really simple compared. Those two assignments, I think it will not give you much problems. I may be wrong, but I don't think they will. I'm looking to see what else is in there, if there's something else that I really want to cover. We talked about file processing. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more? Okay. So let's do this in a non-function way for now. I'm going to just open a new one. And that should have a hash pound sign in front of it. So sometimes it's really useful to be able to store things in files. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. This is going to be a simple text file. So the basic thing when you're writing a file is, let's see if I can see remember, we did a little bit of it last time, didn't we? Maybe we didn't. I don't think we did. So that would be a good thing to go over. So I'm just going to do we'll write a file. So I'm going to say def main. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a name. And this will be the name of the file. So I'll just do input enter file name. Okay. And then I'm going to, what do we want to call this? They call it in file. I guess I'll do that. In file equals file name. So actually it's open file name. This is for read. We don't have a file to read. Let's go to write. I'll just do the write. So file name, comma, and then it's for W, for write, lowercase w. I'm just looking to see if there's something else I need to do. Oh yeah, I need to do no, I think that's fine. I have an example on the blog if this fails. All right. So we need to add some lines. So I'm going to print, and I just want to see. We just want to print. So we want the file print. So first let's do, I'm just going to do, I'll call it content equals input. I'm just going to say write something. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to print. What we want to do is we want to print the file name, or so we want to print and we want to do, I believe it's file name and whatever our content. I think that's reversed. I think it's content file name. I did this only a day or two ago. I'm worried about my memory. I think that's all we have to do. Let's see what happens if we try to run this and then,
Yeah, you have.
oh, I have to
capitalize
capitalize the N,
or
yes.
lowercase it.
I'll capitalize this. I think it's better naming convention to, oops, not being. I think it's a better naming convention to start with lowercase and then go uppercase for the other words, just to be consistent. So let's see if this works. First I have to go back here, so I have to save it. I'm just going to save file processing or something. And save. I'm going to try to run it. Okay, so I'm going to enter the file name. I didn't leave myself a space, but I'm just going to call it test.txt. And then it says to write something, so I'm going to say, this is the content for my file. And then I'm going to press enter. And it wrote that. Why did it write that? I didn't read the file up. Oh, I said, let's see if it wrote the file though. Going to documents. If I screwed up, I'll go look at the blog. Now, so there's test. Let's see if I can zoom this. Where did that go? So there it says test. I want to open it.
My test doesn't say anything.
It doesn't. Mine may not either. Actually, that may not be test. Let's go to Python programs. There's test. But mine is empty. So why did I do that? What did I do wrong? I may not have opened it.
What is in file doing right now?
It's just the name of, oh, you know what? That might be the problem. Let's look at this. I did, got to get the right one. Did I kill it? No, there it is. So in file is open file name. This should be in file, I think. Let's try that. Yes. Yes. Well, I didn't capitalize it here, although I probably should. Yeah, it's not case. Well, so it's just that the case has to match.
Oh, what the heck?
So let's see if it runs this time. Did I get an error? Do I have a, I can't see where I am down there. So enter file name. I'm going to call it test2 text. So I'll write something. This is something. Enter. So did that mean that it wrote it?
I mean, I opened mine and I don't have anything. I mean, I have the file, but I don't
Okay.
have anything in.
It should write it to it. All right, I have a quick solution if this doesn't work. So I have, if I go into documents, I have, actually I don't have a test2.
Mine was in Python programs.
Oh, Python programs, yes. Test2. Still nothing in it. Let's see what I'm doing wrong. I'm going to kill that because it's a, all right, so I'm going to go to,
No, I think what it is you
Created the file.
Right.
Did it have a text?
well, I've created the file, but it should be writing the, text too. So let's look at this and see what I'm forgetting. So here's one. That's the average word of a sentence. It's functions. This one writes a file. So let's get it bigger. Let's see what I'm doing. And I did it as methods, as functions. So I entered the text, and I got that. Write text file. So this is gets the text from that. Input equals enter the file name. Output
Oh,
equals
out
open
file.
file W. Print text. Oh, I didn't do equals out file. I knew I was forgetting something. So if we go back to the other one. So let me look at that. Where did I say out file? So I said it would be nice to have something like more than a minute's memory. So it's when I print. So let's go back. In file equals out file. That may not make sense. I should have probably named it.
This time, out file was last.
Yeah. Oh, so it should
I
be
think we should be
Text
calling it
equals in file.
out file.
calling this out file. So is it file name equals out file?
It's a file equals.
Well, it's kind of both. You're putting input into it,
Right.
printing it out.
So content is the input though, right? And then it's, I think in file was what it was doing with the, so let's look one more time. So let's see, file equals out file, right? So it'd be in file equals out file. Out file is the keyword to tell it that it's going out. File here is, actually no, it's just file equals out. You're right, file equals out file. So this would be file. If we were leaving it the same, it'd be file equals in file, right? Let's try that. Oh, that's because I hit Control V instead of F5. All right, so we'll enter the file name. myfile.txt. This is something. All right, and then So it worked. It was just not saying file equals out file. So we're there. I need to just go to here.
Just do it less or more.
Yeah.
Hey, it's done.
So I just need to zoom this again. All right, so we are there, and I called this my file this time, and this time it has the text in there. So just memory problems. I just forgot file equals in file. So this is just to read it, right? So I mean to write it. So let's try to read it. Couple of things. If you want to write more lines, this is writing one line at a time. You basically need multiple print lines or a loop, right, to write line after line. Although I think if I were to do the same file again, let's try this too. I'm just going to real quickly do F5. And then my file, I'm just going to do my file .txt. And I'm just going to, this is also something. I think it will append. So let's go back to here. No, I just replaced it. I wonder if there's a key to change it from append to replace, from replace to append.
Apparently it only works for creating TXT files.
Well, yeah, what we're doing right now is text.
Okay.
It's
Tried
only
doing
going
a
to be
TSCX
text.
extension and my word couldn't open it.
If you leave, well, so if you leave it without an extension, you just have to say what to open it with. Word should open it.
I did a TSCX. So.
I think it's a W plus.
To append it.
Oh, no.
Well, that'd be append, W plus. We could try that. So I want to open with WordPad. It has LibreOffice. I don't know if I want to go through all of this to see if it'll open in Word. Yeah, it opened in Word. I'm not sure why yours didn't. Of course, I still have the TXT ending. But even so, it should open in Word. It's just text. There are other couple of things I will say. There's a whole lot more file processing you can do. And one of the things about file processing is just not just to write it, but to get like data in. It is W plus.
No, it's just a. I mean,
Oh,
all you listen to is just a change and instead of W in quotes, just the A.
oh, for append?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Oh, well, it's
So to append, change this to A. So let's try, and then I'll move on to reading the file.
Oh, wait. Open with an A
Yeah, so A I think is append.
to append. Yeah.
So if I do, now what happens if the file doesn't exist? Does it do it anyway?
I don't know the answer.
let's try it.
So it should be there where it's appending. And then what I'll do is I'll show you how to read.
There's like nothing, so just, you have like an empty, you have like nothing in there, so it's null space, so it's just wait a pen.
Okay, so it just depends to nothing. If it's, so append would be better in some ways, unless you really want to replace every time.
Of course, internet, you can't believe It was saying it's better to do W plus instead of just W.
Why?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
All right. Let's read a file. I'm going to unzoom. Okay. So let's, do I want a separate program for this, or do you want to just do it in the same thing? Same one. All right, so if we want to read a file, it's basically, I'm actually going to, just so you can tell the difference between them, I'm just going to print some asterisks to get some separation here. And then I'm going to do, basically we want to do, we could give this a different name, but I'm going to leave it the same, equals open file name. We're still in the same thing, so it should know what a file name is. And for reading, it's just R. And then you need to do, I'm going to loop. So for, and then line, is line defined? It doesn't have it defined, so it must be key. For line in file, you can just do, actually, we can actually just do read, I think. I'm just looking at this. I think you can just do, one of the things we didn't do, which we probably should have done, is it lowercase? I think it's lowercase. We probably should close the file once we're done with it. And then I'm going to reopen it. I guess I'll just do the loop for in file. So I'm just looking, this is fancier than I want. I think I can just read it. Yeah, let's just do, rather than do a loop right now, I'm just going to do text equals in file read, and then we'll just print text. Read reads everything. What it has after that, I was looking at it, it has loops if you want to read just some of the lines, or if you want to read it out line by line. So that should work. And then you should probably close the file again. In a lot of file processing in other languages, if you don't close the file, it'll be inaccessible. Have you ever done, because it'll be in process, it'll be hung. You won't be able to open it or see what's in it. It seems to have closed it automatically for us, but it's probably a good idea to do that. So I'm going to do, we'll save it and run it and see if I've got it. So we'll enter a file name. I'm going to use the same one. Actually, what did I call it? My file text. So I'll enter, this should be a third line. Actually, I don't think the quotes are necessary. And then see, it printed it out. So it read it okay here. Now again, the point of this, usually you want to save something worth saving. So there's some of the things you can do with this, like you could assign, particularly if you're going through line by line with a loop, you could have like variables for your, like your last set. Say it's a game, you could bring up their last score and things like that. You could also have some conditions that you want to set. You could assign values to variables from the, looping through. So there's a lot of things you could do with these simple files. Yeah, I'll go back to the code. As I said, these are, the other thing I'll say about general programming languages, this is pretty simple. It's similar to most text file processing. It gets a lot more complicated when you're handling binary files like images, or basically any kind of structured file is a little bit more complicated. I'm sure that there are processes for doing that in all of these.
Syntax error. Although
Yeah.
I'll be getting syntax error in that syntax.
Which will.
Just invalid syntax, but that's all it says. Online.
Relying on any file. Oh, get rid of the read.
And the function.
Yeah. And then what you want to do, notice how it has the next line has the read.
Oh, that,
So text equals.
I see.
These two are different. This one is going to have those. They're the same variable.
Figure that out. If you do something.
Yeah. What are we using for?
Yeah, no, I had
Yeah,
done
it's
this.
just a port cover and a
That's
version.
the way I did it.
It's still pages business chart, just testing and showing us.
So that better, like, after this one.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Out of the zero.
yeah, yeah. So like at that piece.
Yeah.
And then I looked at it, I was like, I mean, this works, but that's not exactly how it works. So that's a couple of ways to do it. And it does, but it erased the first one. Which is fine, but these are better.
When you bring it back, it's all low. Right, but I mean, when you do this read part, then all that, that's the read.
No.
That's So not there, yeah. Yeah, because it's a method and without parentheses, it is. You guys all? Yeah.
Yeah, but there is some gotchas between the RWA and those pluses.
Okay.
There's actually like on Stack Overflow. There's like this decision tree or this table. So it talks about like where you truncate, where you position at the start or at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if the book covers that or not. But
No, it doesn't cover much of anything on
yeah, let me I'll send it to you in an email.
that. Yeah,
This,
do.
yeah, this is a real gotcha. You know, we're talking about you can start at the beginning of the file or end of the file, there's truncation.
Right.
You could,
So each one of those does a slightly
there is
different.
a big deal on those pluses, so okay.
Okay. Do you guys know Stack Overflow? I sometimes find it useful and sometimes frustrating.
This time it was good, actually.
Yeah. Sometimes you go there and it's a long argument and you end up with nothing. Sometimes they give you exactly what you need right away.
It's like going down the rabbit hole of
Yeah.
learning stuff.
There is, so this book tends to simplify, like it doesn't talk much more about files than what I've just covered, but there's a whole lot more about files. The Python documentation is pretty good. If you actually go to the Python documentation at python.org. So let's see if I got I'll just do I need to spend more time there, obviously. So if you go here and you go to docs, and then they've got tutorials, they got a language reference. So let's look at what their tutorials are. So they go through, it's a fairly long tutorial, maybe too long, probably almost a book length. Actually, so it has lists there. I'm curious about lists. So it does append. I'm just looking. I will look at some of those things. If you guys have questions, we can, I can help look them up. All right, so a couple of things. I think I will give you a little while to work on those assignments. I will post these. I wanted to go back to what was already there. I guess, first of all, let's do day of the week. This is very close to what your assignment would be. It should take you very little time to adapt this to your assignment. For the number 2, I think. It's assignment 3, but I think it's number 2 in the back.
Yes, it's number 2.
And then there's number 9, I believe, which is just a string. Do you guys need anything more about the string? The sentences and strings? You guys okay with that, or you want a little more?
Sure.
A little bit more? So, a couple of things that I didn't really cover too much. So let's just I'll do a new one. And as I said, I'll post all these. So a couple of things just to kind of review about strings. So I may just run, let's do a def main. So I'm just going to say input, enter a sentence. Okay, and then we're just going to do a couple of things to the sentence. So the sentence has, so I'm just going to say, so we're going to print the first letter of the sentence. And that's what we'll do first. And then we'll just keep adding, doing stuff here. So I'm just going to call main. So every character in the sentence has an index, right? And 0 would be the first one. I'm calling it strings. Okay, so I'm going to run this. This is very, whoops, I just hit, oh, actually it worked, I think. Maybe I did hit F5. So I'm just going to say this is a sentence. I'm going to press enter and it returns T for this. Okay. I'm going to kill this so that it's up at the top again. One of the things I'm going to do is put a gap there. All right. One of the things I'm going to do print .ord. Anybody know what this is doing? It's not really necessary for your assignment. I'm doing it right. Let's see if I'm doing it right, and then I'll explain it. No, it doesn't like it.
You're missing a.
Oh, you're missing a parenthesis on the end of that second print statement.
Okay, so I'm going to, this is also a sentence. What is the 84? Does anybody know? It's what the ORD does. I don't think I explained it in this case. You know that every letter.
Orange does?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it checks for it's like a,
It's
not
a,
totally sure how to describe it, but it's individual, it has to do with individual characters.
yeah, every character in the alphabet, and in fact all the alphabets, are stored as numbers in the
so like
computer.
its
This is
Unicode
its
value?
location.
Oh.
It is 84 on the ASCII scale, capital T. Right? If I were to do like any character, you can get its ASCII number, right? You can just get it from, we'll just say that. So you could, one of the things that they do, I'm going to change this a little bit. I'm going to do for I equals, for I in range 0 to sentence, and I want a length sentence, LEN. So we're going to get the length of the sentence. We're going to, and this has to be tabbed in. All right, so we're going to print out the, we're going to print out all the character values of the sentences. All right, so we're going to loop through, starting at 0, go through the length of the sentence, and we're going to print out the number value for each of the characters. So I'm gonna save this. Hopefully this will work. So I need to enter a sentence. And it basically goes through and lists all of the, notice that the space is 32. I'm not sure why I have an H there.
Can't print sentences.
What?
You can't print sentences. Print sentence zero.
Oh, prints at 0.
So take the H first and put the other command.
Let me look. Wrong one there. I have a lot of these open. Print I and range. Oh, I left this here. I left this here. Yeah, that's why. So otherwise it's fine. Okay, so those are the characters for each of the things. This could be useful. Sometimes you need to know the ASCII code for a character. You can also do the opposite. I'm actually going to, I keep missing my, which one of these this is. I don't want to close the others because I want to post them. There it is. Let's just take a character at random. So I'm going to comment this for right now. So you could do print, and this one is just going to be by itself. I'm going to do, I think it's CHR, and then you give it a number. So they did this with the number for pi. And I forget what that was, 960 or something. I don't know. Let's just do 960. So 960 is no longer an ASCII character. Whatever it is, it's not ASCII. So, because ASCII only goes up to 255. Let's just see what it is. It may be nothing. So I'm going to save F5. What did I get down there? Oh, I have to enter a sentence still. I hate. All right, so here's my sentence. It is pi. 960 was pi. D is still the first letter of the sentence. So 960 is pi. Remember that. So curiosity-wise, 961 should be row. Before I run this, I'm going to kill that thing again. Just because it's hard to read. Oops, wrong one. All right. It is row. So it's pi rho tau, right?
No, I think it's pi rho sigma, right?
Sigma tau. Yeah. So the next one should be sigma. It's a weird thing, but I can actually. I took several years of ancient Greek. So this should be a sigma. And it's ignoring my sentence, but yeah, it's a sigma. Anyway, those are no longer ASCII, that's into the Unicode. But you can use the character to return if you have the number. This is actually a really clumsy way to get to write in something non-ASCII is if you had the characters for it, or if you know like the wingding set because they're in there too. You know all the different shapes and things. If you have the numbers, you can actually use them to make an ASCII. Or call it ASCII, but you could use it for character drawing, the text drawing. It's a painful way to go, but you can do that with just a character string. So I just wanted to show you that the two things. The ORD returns the number for a character, and this returns the character for a number. I'm going to comment it. I'm going to do one other thing. This is really where your assignment comes in. So the length, you know, right? The length returns just the length of the sentence in characters. It does count the spaces.
Oh, it's lowercase. So,
Which one?
yeah, so, oh, okay, so there.
All right, so I'm going to, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this sentence. So I'm going to say that I'm just going to call it words equals sentence split. I'm going to show you a couple of things here. First, I'm just going to split this. And then for string in words, print string. So this, what we'll do is we'll enter a sentence, we'll split it up into words. I'm going to show you a couple of things with split, and then we'll probably. So I'm going to do Control S to save. You need a minute for that? We kind of did a little bit of this before. So when I enter a sentence, so it splits. I still have that print the first character. I should have commented it out too, but it breaks it up into words. By default, okay, wrong one again. By default, if you don't put anything in the split, it splits on the space. I want to show you though, let's take it, if we were to do it by,
Comma.
yeah, we could do comma. So I'm just going to put a comma here. And in our sentence, I'll make sure there's a couple of commas. You could also do like a comma delimited list. We could do, so let's do,
That's why I changed it because it's funny.
yeah, comma delimited lists are really common. So let's do, so in my sentence, I'm just going to do 1, comma, 2, comma, 3, comma, 4. So there's no spaces, so that couldn't split on a space. But when I do that, it splits 1, 2, 3, 4 because I told it to split on a comma. Does that make sense? If I put a slash in there for like a date, you could break out the year, month, and day. You can basically tell it whatever character you want to split on. By default, if you leave it empty, it's going to be the space. That's usually what you want to split on, but not always. Does that make sense? Is there anything else that I want to show you? I've actually given you enough to do that second assignment because once you know how to split things out, then it's just counting. There's also splice. Did I show you splice? I thought I did. And we should maybe look at a format real quickly. And you can do lower and upper. All right, so I think, so just like this, do upper. I think that's correct. So we're splitting still on commas, right? Come on. So I'll just do, I'm going to do these all lowercase again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, upper is not defined. Is it dot upper? Let's do this. Yeah, that one worked. So I just turned them all to upper. You can turn them all to lower. That can matter when you're trying to get consistency, like in a database something, and you're trying to enter things into a database, or you need to use them for some part of a program or something. Consistency can be really, really matter. So being able to turn them all to upper or lower, make sure you can make them consistent. Does that make sense? So there's upper and lower as a string function. Looking for my mouse. There it is. As I said, you could go through this chapter. There's some other string functions too. I wanted to show you splice, and then I think I may call it good. Looking for the list of the, I think it's just called splice. Oh, it's not actually called anything, but it is a splice. Slicing, they call it actually. If I want to return, so I'm going to comment out my splits. So I'm just going to, we have our sentence, and then I'm just going to say, I'm going to just call it middle equals sentence. And instead of giving it a just one character, I'm going to give it 2. And I'm just going to randomly, this is probably really dumb, but I'm going to do 2 numbers, 5 to 10. So I need to make sure my sentence has more than 10 characters. And then I'll just print middle. All right, so this is, when you want to return a single character, you just give it the index. This will let you return a range from a beginning to an end. So I'm going to save. So I'm going to enter a sentence. I just wanted to make sure it was long enough. It returns is, if you count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, and we start with 0. So, actually, it doesn't start with 0. Yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to go till 10. So 6, 7, 8, 9. Should have brought back the S, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, 10 isn't included because it's one less than the end one. It's not inclusive of the end. Does that make sense? It stops at 9. It's not inclusive. A lot of times when you're doing things, it's a matter of whether it includes the end or not. This does not. All right, I think that's enough on strings. With the stuff that we did today, that those 2 assignments should not be too hard to do. If they are, let me know and I'll help you with them, but I don't think they'll be hard. I'll post all of this, but I think that's probably good for today. So I'm learning as you guys are, so I hope you'll forgive me my occasional blunders. Yeah, 3 and 4. And, there will be some time. So we have about a half hour now if you want to work on them, or you can work on them over the weekend, whenever you want to work on them. I just realized that we hadn't really talked about them, and I had sort of blundered on ahead to the next topic, which is functions. So, and if you want to build these into functions, it'll make them more fun, more difficult, but more fun. Yeah.
So this is assignment, assignment 3, right?
Yeah, 3 and 4.
Okay. It says that assignment 3 is due at 11:59 today, right now.
Yeah, don't worry about the dates.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. The dates are never that. I'm not strict about the dates at all. And we can take those as well. Yeah.
I feel like that.
Yeah, so it's got a lot to be good. Yeah.
The grade was supposed to be one that two that.
Well, I think it's, 0 is that. So I think it's 0 is that.
Okay. I'm going all the way to seven or six.
I think this one's, so 0, 1, that's 6.
So it's be eight plus five.
I didn't, I don't think it, I mean, you can make it count. Five is eight. So,
Yeah, 5 a day. So you have 6 total.
If you want to do it, okay.
If you see it, let me know, because I can't see it. You don't need to, so 5.2 is, you need to check 5. Yeah, and then the exercises, it's programming exercises. So there's shit, so those, not those exercises, the programming exercises. Do you see anything? Because it looks different to the 5.
Yeah. Okay.
Giving everybody $30. I was looking at doing what I told you, I was looking at the option. Doing okay?
Yeah, you know, I just have one question
Oh,
for
are
you
you gonna-
regarding this. I downloaded everything on my computer at home, and then I can't go to database. I can't connect to the server.
Why, I wonder why. So you downloaded the server and the management studio?
Yeah, and I must have missed the server part of the download because it doesn't.
You might have only downloaded it.
Yeah, that's what I get, that's a awesome core thing, what I missed.
The other thing I want to tell you is on this machine.
Yeah.
I accidentally, there was another girl that had been sick and I tied her to the same thing, same virtual machine. So she has a separate, when you get in there, you'll see that there's two instances.
Okay.
One of them, I made her, she named it differently.
Okay.
That's fine. I told her not to mess with yours, but I had a. All right, so what is this? Another. Okay, so, savings is not defined, so. Let's see where we got there. Looking for another. This actually showed 8 days. He's changed all the days. Not day one is okay, he's changed all the days. Yeah. And get rid of it. Because that's what you named it right there. I can't get over it. Then days. 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 So day 3 equals days, day number. Except we got Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yes.
Oh, because you don't have.
Oh.
Yeah, you need the commas. Otherwise, they're all the same thing.
So I wanted to show you just by accident, when you do string, but you don't do the parentheses inside,
Yeah.
you actually get the actual addressing.
Oh, interesting.
This is where you can get dangerous. Right.
So that gives you the actual hex address of the memory.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. That seems like a weird bug.
Yeah, in the either in the interpreter or the itself, right? And you really shouldn't tell us this.
No,
You could really,
you could start use that to hack.
yeah, big time. Yeah, let me show you again so you can know.
I believe you. Yeah, but this is as an interpreted high-level language. It should not let you get to the memory addresses.
And so I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's my sentence.
And that's the hex address. Weird.
Yeah, I mean, I'll send this to you as well.
Yeah.
So,
Let me.
Steve.
Oh, my video is still